Hey everyone, my name is Joshua and welcome to Conversations with Joshua T Berglan. Today we have an amazing guest. Such a powerful story, and it's one of those stories that it's kind of what inspired me to get into broadcasting because I wanted to share stories that were like mine because I knew I wasn't the only one with a really crazy, insane story. And and I think if we talk to the neighbors down the street and everyone we know, we like to think that we've got a pretty wild story, or we'll say that we have a story that doesn't matter. And let me tell you something: all stories matter, all of them, especially if they're true. And here's why: because when we share our stories, we attract our tribe. The truth attracts our tribe, even the ugly stuff. But none of what we go through is meant to be wasted and not used. I believe that God will use anything that we give him. Anything that we surrender God, God will use. And whether God's a male or female or both or none of that, I don't care. It's just a habit to say he. But that said, it's our duty to share our story, especially overcoming. We share when we're being hurt. We share when we're wounded. We share when things aren't right. We don't hold it in because when we hold it in, it turns into poison. Okay, so then we share it where we're at. When we share that, one of the things I believe happens is that our truth attracts our tribe. In other words, somebody out there that may be able to help or have a resource can step in and help you. The other side to that is when we've overcome a challenge, we've faced a giant and slayed it, overcome addiction, overcome abuse or trauma or sexual abuse, any of that stuff, sexual identity issues, all of those things that cause harm. And when we overcome them, it's our duty to share how we did it. Not that how we did it is going to work for everyone, but truth attracts our tribe. When we share, people want to know how we did it. But the flip side is that we share, and it's not to say, oh, look at me, I'm struggling and everything is miserable and oh, feel sorry for me. It's not about that. But if you're struggling with addiction of any kind, you're being abused, you're being harassed, you're being tortured, it is your duty to say something, because if you don't say anything, no one's going to help you, and we are not mind readers. In fact, I know a lot of times we want people to be able to read our mind, and then we get mad at them when they try to read our mind, and it's wrong. Kind of a mind F. But this is why we share honestly. Whether it's good or bad, we share. Not throwing pity parties, not trying to get people to feel sorry for us, or to say, look how cool I am. It's not about that. It's just being honest. There's nothing wrong with being honest, because truth will attract your tribe. Truth will attract your resources. Truth will set you free. Truth will set the people around you free. Anyway, so this guest today is got a story. Don't know who that was calling in the middle of my video. Anyway, doesn't matter. Luke Worsfold is got a story. This is a powerful story. This story, even though it's not like mine, which is equally, it's pretty crazy, this is a pretty wild story too. And how Luke overcame all of this, I can't wait to find out. You guys are not going to want to miss this broadcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Conversations with Joshua T Berglan. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to Conversations with Joshua T Berglan. And today, as I was telling you before in the intro, we have somebody with one of the, I don't want to say cool story, but it is a cool story, because anytime you overcome something wild and something that is where your home life and everything is chaotic at home, the place that you're supposed to grow up, feel safe, the place that you're supposed to incubate, to be able to go on as an adult and live your life and live it with no trauma and hardships and so on. Like, that's what we're kind of, the picture that we're painted about what family life is supposed to be. But the truth is, that's not exactly how it works. And we all know that. Some stories are crazier than others. When I read about our guest today, Mr. Luke Worsfold. I got to tell you, I had a crazy childhood, but I also had some advantages that helped me a lot, and they've helped me as an adult. They've helped me have something to be able to visualize, to pull myself out, to know that there was a better life. This story today impacted me just by reading it. So when I say that I'm honored to introduce to you today our guest, I mean it sincerely. Luke, brother, you are a blessing. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much for having me on the show, Josh.
Absolutely. So our stories are a little bit different, but the one thing that stuck out to me, I hated my father. But the one thing I had was my mother. And I like to say for a long time when I was rehabilitating my life that if my mother was my saving grace and everything good in me came from my mom. I used to say that. Now I've healed and I can totally recognize the good in me that was my father also. Like I've gotten to that place. But I got to think that, you know, I can't imagine what it would be like not having a solid relationship with my mother, because I think that that's where we learn how to be sensitive as men, compassionate, where we really learn to love. At least that's what I would think. So your story kind of impacted me immediately because you didn't have that mother connection. So can you tell me, like, I don't really know the good place to start, but I want to ask you, with your mom, like, what was that like with your mom being an addict and you seeing this as a youngster? Like, where were you being fed and nurtured emotionally at that point in your life?
Yeah, so like you say, my mum, she was heavy in addiction, and her and my dad were together in my younger years. And in terms of where I was being fed some of that nurturing energy, so I did have some important female kind of role models in my life. My nan would have been one of them that stands out. She always looked after me. And one thing with mum being inconsistent, my nan, she used to pick me up from school every single Wednesday. So every single Wednesday, she'd always be there every single week. And she would take me to wherever I wanted to go. It was kind of like my wish is kind of her command in a way. And I'd go to different skate parks and I'd go out on my bike and I'd go BMXing, and I'd do that every single week. And she'd sit there in the car and wait for me for like 3 hours, 4 hours, just reading her book while I was there going to the skate park. So not having a mum, that did have a big impact, but my nan was an important role model for me, and that gave me that level of consistency, having her there every week. And I remember a house, I went around a house at the weekend actually. She's kind of no longer with us, my nan, but I went around a house at the weekend, and I always remember our house being warm. She always had like money, so she always had an abundance of things. She didn't just have one drink, she had a cabinet of drinks, and you could choose what drink you want. There was always an abundance of things. She always had lots of chocolate, lots of food. There was always really nice things, which I really, really enjoyed. So she would be one of the biggest role models for me in my early days when mum wasn't necessarily always able to meet my needs.
So, okay, so that is pretty telling, and it's also confusing, because I would think, and this doesn't mean that's true, but I would think that you could have looked at your mother as the reason why you became an addict yourself, because you didn't have that men can't love the way women love. Like, it's different. It's just totally different. I don't know why, I don't know how that is, but it's a different type of love. But it sounds like you had a version of that. It's still not the same thing. How did you fall into addiction the way that you did, with kind of mimicking your mom's addiction? Was that more chemical, or was it rage towards her? Was the nan, is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Was nan's love not enough? Like, how does addiction still happen for you when it doesn't sound like that void was as empty as it sounds on paper?
Yeah, I think one thing that can never be replaced is a mother's love, like the sort of love that a mum gives you or that you crave from a mum. is just irreplaceable. No matter how amazing the woman is, what other women come in your life, there was always a part of, but that's not mum's love. And even if it was like my stepmom later on, or even my nan, it was like, that wasn't my mum's love. I wanted my mum's love, which I couldn't have because she was drinking, and then she passed away when I was 10. So that's something that I always craved, is mum's love. I always wanted that. And in terms of addiction, because I didn't really have mum's love, I was around my dad and my brothers. Now, my brothers are awesome, and I love my dad, and they've both been all been consistent and amazing in my life. But one thing that was in that echo chamber and in that environment was a lot of masculinity, and boys will be boys. So my brothers, they're 4 and 5 years older than me. So I was the youngest one of all 3 of us. And we would all kind of have fights, right? Boys will be boys. We just lost our mum at, like, I was 10 and they were 14 and 15. So we just lost our mum. We had a lot of grief and sadness and just despair, and didn't really know what to do with those emotions. We wouldn't have labeled them that. We just called it anger, or fighting each other, or beating each other up, or mucking around, all of that masculine stuff. So we used to beat each other up a lot. And obviously I was the youngest, so I always got the short end of the stick. And I would also start a lot of fights that I would ultimately lose. So whenever I try to show emotions or express emotions or let some of this emotion, even if it was anger, out, I would be silenced in some ways, and I would be suppressed, and I would suppress the anger, suppress the sadness, suppress the emotions. So I just pushed all of those emotions down in the pit of my stomach, never to be found again. And that created this kind of dysregulation of not knowing that I even had any emotions, not knowing what emotions were. And as I grew up and went into later life, I then found drink and drugs, and it just kind of tied together. I'm numbing my emotions. My emotions get more and more challenging. Need to numb them out with drink and drugs.
What was your drug of choice?
Yeah, so for me, I would say I struggled with a few different ones. I would say with cannabis, I smoked every single day, smoking weed and smoking joints. And then with cocaine and alcohol, I would say I was like a weekend user. So I'd use like every weekend for a period, and sometimes during the week, and quite a heavy user, although that didn't get necessarily daily. And then I've also had other things like MDMA, magic mushrooms, all that kind of stuff, and ecstasy, done all of those things. But I would say they're the kind of cadence. And for me, the one that became a big problem was when I was drinking and doing coke. That's when I was running my business, and my business kind of went down and down and down because of the addiction to coke and alcohol.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was a coke addict. And then I got to where I couldn't really use coke anymore, so I went to meth, and meth was the easier thing to get also for me in that at that period of my life. So I relate to that. You were talking about your brothers and growing up in that environment, and you're talking about that emptiness that comes from your mother not being present. And I don't know what's worse, is, having a mother that's, inebriated and drunk and on not there. Like I can't imagine the pain from either place. I just can't. I can't comprehend it. But the one thing that I'm curious about, because I never felt worthy. Self-worth was a massive struggle for me. I never felt like I was good enough. I'm 44 and still deal with that a lot. And I like to say that it's me putting pressure on myself because I want to be the best. But I can immediately go back to my emotions as a child, never feeling like anything was good enough. Where did your self-worth come from at that point in your life growing up? And where does it come from now?
So at that point in my life, I didn't have much self-worth, right? The story and the script in my mind was, if mum really loved me, she wouldn't have drunk. If mum really loved me, she wouldn't have drunk and died. If I was really worth something, she wouldn't have drunk and died. Clearly, I have no value, or she would have stopped drinking. Of course, as people in recovery going through that whole journey, we understand it's not quite as simple as that, right? And I've worked with hundreds of clients myself. I know it's not quite as simple as that, but for that little child, that inner Luke, that inner child Luke, that's what he internalized. I'm not good enough. That's why mum drank and died. So I didn't really have any value or any worth, and that fed the addiction and fed the drinking and the drug use 100%. And it's taken me many, many years of therapy to start to rebuild that self-worth. And like you said, even in your 40s, it's a work in progress. We're never complete, even I'm not complete, but it's something I work on. And one of the ways I do that is through self-love. So doing acts of self-love for myself. So there's an amazing book called The 5 Love Languages. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. But yeah, there's 5 love languages. So I'm going to list them out. There's physical touch, words of affirmation, gifts, quality time, and the 4th one is acts of service. Sorry, the 5th one is acts of service. So there are many different gifts, and I try and focus on loving myself and giving myself love. So just to tell you a quick story, Josh, one of the ways I did this is I finally moved into my own flat that I could afford as I was in recovery. I'd always lived in house shares and didn't live at home since I was 17. So moving into a flat where I could pay for the whole flat, I could pay for things in there, that was like a massive achievement in my life. And that was a big act of self-love in itself. But one of the things I did is, just to rewind a bit, when I was growing up at my mum's, and sometimes I'd go around the house, there wasn't really much food. She was off drinking and it was hard. And I remember one time when I must have been like 6, 7, 8 years old, trying to look around for some food. And I remember opening the fridge and there was nothing in the fridge, of course. So I closed that door. Then I opened the freezer and there was these little microwave pizzas. They were like this big. You put them in the microwave for 2 minutes in England and it smelled like dog food because it had pepperoni on it. And it was actually quite nice as a kid. But I made that was what I used to eat sometimes. It was in the freezer, these 2-minute pizzas. That's what I used to have. So fast forward many years, when I moved into this flat that I could finally afford, one of the things I did as an act of self-love was I made myself one of those pizzas for 2.5 minutes and I put it on the counter like that. But I also made, Josh, an amazing meal of a wing of skate and triple cooked chips from Heston Blumenthal. And I cooked it in my lovely pots and pans I just brought, and I made it to perfection. I went all out on this meal. I live by the sea, so I went and got a lovely wing of skate from the fishmongers, and I put both the meals, this 2.5 minute pizza that smelled like dog food, and my lovely, Michelin star, as I call it, skate and chips. And I sat there and I ate it by myself in my flat. And that to me was like a real act of self-love, really increasing that self-worth. I'm worthy of this. I made it to this flat. I'm safe. I'm warm. My inner child is safe. Don't have to eat these shit pizzas anymore in my life, And I get to eat this lovely meal that I made for myself. And that is just an example of some of the self-love and some of the things I do for myself on a regular basis to help raise that self-worth.
I like that. One of the things that I noticed in my own healing journey was that forgiveness was the key. Well, it's compassion, then forgiveness, that allowed me to forgive my father, that kind of set my process of healing, set everything in motion. But one of the things that I've learned is that forgiveness and healing, it's a process, and there's levels of forgiveness. But one of the things that kind of happened to me about 1.5 years, 2 years ago was that not only did I had forgiven my dad, I started to only remember good things about him. Like all the bad shit just kind of disappeared that I remembered, or the sting of the bad stuff has gone. And I started to look at all the things that were amazing about him and why I wanted his approval so much, and where the good qualities of me came from, and to be able to look at him and smile and go, wow, I'm doing so much of what he was doing that he wanted to do when he gave up on his dream. And like, I can think of all that and feel really, really good about it, even though for all of my life that I remembered him before he died, I hated him. So that to me was a sign of, wow, this is healing, this is growth, this feels good, this feels way better than having negative thoughts. I want to know, like, for you, are you able to look back at your mother, and do you have good memories that sit with you and stick with you that you like to think about? And if so, what are they?
Yeah, I think it's hard. I think the anger and resentment, I think, is a big thing. Like you said, that's a big thing in the journey for me, the anger and resentment. And for me, that was really challenging to overcome. There was many, many years where I was stuck in the anger and resentment, just like, why did she do this? Why did she drink and use drugs? And why did she pass away? Like, why did this happen? And that took years and years of therapy, of working through, of talking through, of processing it. And I also wrote a lot of letters to mum. So I'd write down all my emotions, all my anger, you know, all of the frustration, just as harsh as I could be, like everything that inner child felt. I'd write it all down. Then I'd take the letter and I'd go and burn it. And I'd watch it all burn and kind of leave my soul and watch that letter and all those anger and resentment kind of dissipate away. And I've written many letters to mum over the years and burnt them and processed that emotion. And that has really helped me. That's really helped me get to a sense of gratitude and a sense of appreciation, and definitely helped in the work I do now. In terms of, you know, the main lesson I learned from mum was that her life was not an example, her death was the lesson. And that's one thing I remember to this day. Her life was not the example, it was her death that was the lesson. And that's always stayed with me. You know, don't behave in that way. Remember what happens if you keep using, what happens if you relapse, what happens if you keep going down that path. It only ends in one way, which is death. So pay attention to that lesson. And that's one thing that's always stayed with me. In terms of positive memories of mum, I feel like one thing I enjoyed with mum is of course, as a kid, not having so many boundaries. She was always fun. She'd always give us freedom to go around and do what we want. She was quite, you know, spontaneous. I won't say chaotic, I'm going to say spontaneous. And she would be like, yeah, today, kids, we're going to make a fish pond. And I remember one day me and my brothers were digging this hole, and we laid down all of this like black stuff for the fish pond and filled up with water and put fish in it. And we randomly one day made a fish pond. And that's like a memory that I always remember. That was a good one of just like an exciting thing that you can do as a kid. Like that was just like a really big adventure, going to do a fish pond. And also horses. She was always into horses. And we had a horse and he was called Smokey. And we used to take him Coca-Cola. And we used to put like Coca-Cola on the horse's tongue because we were kids, and the horse used to actually drink the Coca-Cola and lick it because it was sweet. And we used to give the horse Coca-Cola, not like loads, but like a little bit of Coca-Cola, and the horse would love it. So there's definitely some positive memories that I definitely do stand out.
I love that. One of my favorite ones I'll just share with you just for fun, just not because you asked.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
My dad was a touring musician. Like in his early days, he gave up the opportunity to go on a world tour because his dad convinced him he should go to college. So he always reminded me of that, like in all of his stories, that he gave up on his dream because he wanted to, you know, honor his father. But what he would do is when we would go to the nursing home to see my grandmother, he would put on a mini concert every time we went for all the people in the nursing home, because he was a good musician. So he'd play, he'd jam out, and he would put on these little mini concerts for all the old people. And like that's one of my favorite memories of him, because for as much as, you know, he was selfish and things like that with some of his behavior, which I can relate to now, he loved to help people. He loved to make people feel good. He loved to entertain people. And it didn't matter who it was. And so that was one of my favorite memories of him. So I appreciate you sharing that. You brought up what you do now, and this is one of the things that I love about you so much. I mean, other than your vulnerability and sharing so openly, you have taken the pain of your life and your healing, and you're using it now to be a blessing to other people. And to me, that is why we're here. Like, we're all going to F up. We're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to, you know, do things that we regret. And I would think that a majority of us have some type of addiction at this point. It's probably social media. But anyway, but we have those kind of things now. But at the same time, not everyone decides to say, you know what? I don't want anyone else to go through this. I'm gonna use my pain as fuel to help other people and show them that they don't have to live this life. There is a better way. And you are doing that with your whole heart and soul. Would you please share with the audience what you're doing now, and really anything your heart feels led to share?
Yeah. So one of the things that happened to me through my recovery is I had therapy. That's what worked for me. I tried AA. I tried to go to some meetings. I researched rehab, but that was way too expensive, and looked at a few different options. And what really worked for me was counselling, right? Having an addiction specialist therapist who had been through addiction herself, who had worked in rehab, who knew the lay of the land. She really helped me change my life and ultimately saved my life and changed the direction of my life. And I was so grateful for her and for the work we did. That coincided with a time in my life where I was working as like a web designer, building websites, and I was just unfulfilled in recovery. I was like, look, I'm just going to build websites so people can sell more cupcakes. Like, I just don't care. Like, that doesn't wake me up in the morning. I don't care if you sell more cupcakes. I need more from life. Surely I was here more. If I'm going to do this whole recovery, I'm not using drugs, like I'm doing really well. I need more from life. And those two things coincided, right? I saw the value of therapy, and I saw that I wanted more fulfillment, more alignment, more authenticity in my life. And that led to a natural progression where the opportunity came up to do a degree in counselling. I'd never been a fan of university or taken on that path, but I decided I'm going to go for it. And I went and did a degree in university and really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed learning about therapy and counselling and all of the different way our brain works, and ultimately kind of answering the question, why did mum do this? Yes, I've been through my own journey of addiction, but I also wanted to learn more about the mind, and I let that curiosity drive me. And it got me to a place where I then finished my degree and I went on to set up my own private practice. I've always been an entrepreneur and ran businesses. So again, another thing that kind of coincided, two things that overlapped in my life, was now this passion and fulfillment from counseling and helping people, and also the entrepreneurial side of running the business and building a business, which I really enjoyed. So I really enjoy the work I do, working with clients and learning about clients and helping them get their drink and drug use under control. And, you know, yes, some people, they don't succeed, right? Some people, they don't. It's just the nature of the industry. And it, like mum, some people not this lifetime. You know, that's one thing I remember, or that I've learned from her. Not everyone is meant to get the message. They need to keep banging their head against the wall until they're ready. But for the people that are ready, like you and I, we're in recovery, right? We've been through the journey. For the people that are ready, I love helping those people, and we get really good results. Got tons of good reviews on Trustpilot, and really work hard with clients, taking them through an 8-week program that helps them get their drink and drug use under control. That helps them learn loads of different tools, using accountability and the sense of actually understanding how to have the one-to-one counseling, how to go through. We have a video program that they go through and watch all the videos. They have worksheets that they complete that they go through, and they also have accountability phone calls. So really working with clients, going through that process, is so much more fulfilling, right? When I have that session with a client who really kind of has that click, who has that shift, who's like, wow, Luke, I never knew that. I never connected that dot in my brain. That never made sense to me before. Or, wow, meditation really helped me. My mind really quietened down, like whatever it may be. That is so much more fulfilling and really helping change the direction of people's lives away from addiction, away from that self-destructive path towards a more self-restoring path.
Yeah, I had to find, for me, I never got sober by saying I can't do this, or I can no longer drink, or I can no, and drinking wasn't really my thing. It just gave me an excuse to use the drugs that I wanted to use. And which is primarily why I just went straight to the drugs eventually, because the alcohol just got in the way. But I love drugs. Like I was a chemsex addict for 20 years, and it took me a long time to even get to a place where I could say I don't want to do it, because for a long time it was like I still want to do it, I still craved it, and so forth. But for me, the trick, and I think I tricked my brain, because I've been sober for a long time, almost 8 years, and I had convinced myself that I may like these drugs, or I may like the way I feel, but I like what God has for me more. I like these other options much better. I had to find something that I loved more than drugs to not do it. And so the way it worked for me was, every time I wanted to go tie one off and go on a bender, I would ask myself, I would go through this process I go, well, okay, I've got a couple hours here that I could do it, but then I'm going to miss out on bang, 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 bang. And then if I'm all strung out and I get a phone call and then I miss an opportunity, well, no, okay, never mind. I can't party today. I did that for about 5 years solid, where I just went through it, went through the whole process of my ritual of everything I did, because I did the same thing pretty much every time I partied. I allowed myself to go through the mental gymnastics only to go, yeah, but I really want to do this more. And that's what worked for me. I can't say that it's the right method, but there was something psychologically by saying, no, I can't do that because I will do whatever. It's like this competitive thing in my brain goes, oh, I could do it one more time. It's not going to be a big deal. And then, of course, it would be. How dangerous is that for someone to try to do to help their sobriety? Because I felt like it was really dangerous every time I was doing it, but that was the only way I could make myself not want to do it.
Yeah. I think one thing that stands out from what you're saying, right, is that vision, is having a vision. And I think a vision is really important, a vision of the future. Yes, I can drink and use drugs in this moment, but how is that feeding into the vision, and needing to have a vision that's more than that? I think that's really, really important. So, and that's one thing I go through with a lot of clients, is having a vision that's bigger than just drink or drugs. Because if your job every single day is just to wake up and not use drugs and drink, yes, that's okay. But you want to aim for way more than that. You want to aim for much higher than that. And that's why, 6 years ago, I aimed to have a lot of the things I have in my life now, right? To have a successful business, to have a relationship, to have, to live in a really nice home that I live in. So it's important to aim for things much higher than that, and to take care of your health, to take care of your finances and get more structure in your life, to take care of your fulfillment and happiness, and actually write down some of the things you want. And even if you don't necessarily believe that you can achieve them, or even know how, the how is none of your business, right? You don't need to know how you're going to do it. You need to just have the faith and the direction and walk in that direction. And then eventually things will start to happen. Doors will start to open. You won't have to go around banging down doors all the time. They'll start to open naturally and effortlessly, and you'll start to be guided in the right direction. Like, I didn't know I wanted to have a degree. I didn't know I wanted to kind of live where I live or do the things I'm doing. I would have never said, look, Jason, Josh, sorry, I want to be a counselor. I would have said, I just want to be authentic, right? I want to have a business that fulfills me. They were my goals. And along the way, the opportunity to become a counselor came up, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. This is exactly what I was looking for. I didn't even know what I was looking for. Like, I didn't even know what I didn't even know. I didn't even know the possibilities. I didn't even know what it was, but I just knew that direction. I knew that aim, and that's what I headed in, and just kept putting one foot after the other, heading in that direction. And eventually I got there. And with clients, that's one of the things I do in the program, is create a vision for them. What's going to happen in their life if they have things under control, if they're not stuck in that madness? How is the trust going to improve in their relationship, right? How are they going to improve the trust with their partner? How is their work performance going to increase? How is their health going to increase? How is their work life going to be? And really kind of go through that and map out with them exactly what it's going to be like in 5 years, so they have a direction to go towards, because I think that's just so important.
Amen to that. I love that. And you said something that it reminded me when I was doing a self-mastery course here recently. There's this manifestation formula that it is, and I don't like formulas and I don't like things like that, but I did like this. I choose, like, I have my goal, I choose to have blank. And then the other part of it is surrendering the how, why, when, what, and where. So it's like I can have this grand vision, and for me is I want the world's mayor experience to help 500 million people worldwide. That sounds impossible, but when I first had the vision for it, it seemed even more impossible. But yet, I could literally look over the course of my life, going, "Wow, I really am moving towards that." And from the outside world, I'm sure it looks insane, but for me and my vision, I can see progress. So that means I have hope. But the thing that I've learned in my journey is I would get these visions, and I immediately thought, these visions are supposed to come true tomorrow. Not knowing that there was a journey involved. Woo! There's a journey involved. Holy shit. Anyway, this journey is huge. But just because you get the vision doesn't mean it's happening anytime soon. But what I was doing for a long time was obsessing and thinking that I was going to control my steps to get there. How it was this person that you're going to help me reach this goal. So now that I've met you, I'm all excited because I believe in my heart you're the right partner for me to help me get there, or whatever situation. It doesn't work that way. And so the reason I like this manifestation formula is because it reminds me that I'm co-creating with the creator, with God, whoever, this universal power that makes awesome things happen and keeps everything connected and keeps everything working together and keeps everything in balance. Whoever that is, I'm all for it. But I get to co-create. So I'm not going to be able to control the relationships or the people that come out of the woodwork to be part of that. I have no control over that. So surrendering to how, why, when, or what helped me kind of release control and trust. It was a different type of surrender that I didn't know before. And it has changed dramatically because now all of these things are taking shape that I had nothing to do with. When I meet that person or that relationship that I may instinctively want to say, hey, this is the person. I don't put that kind of pressure on it. I'm just allowing and trusting things. So for you, and I would like, because I know you're short on time, I would like for you to kind of respond to what I just said and however you feel. And then also share any last words you have and make sure to plug your business, how people can follow you, how people, if they want to work with you, how they can. The floor is yours.
Yeah, no, awesome. Well, yeah, I think manifesting is so important, and being like an architect of your own reality, literally just imagining the reality and building it. But one thing you said that resonated with me is not forcing it, right? When you try and force it too much or make it happen, firstly, it's exhausting. And secondly, you're trying to make reality fit the way you want. And it just doesn't work like that. You can't make it happen. And even if you do slightly make it happen, it's just exhausting. So you need to be in what they may call like a flow state, heading in that direction, and then doors start to open effortlessly. You know, it's the same old saying I heard someone once say, you know, it's like you can sit there making 1,000 phone calls trying to get that deal, and that's like in making it happen, making 1,000 phone calls. I'm going to get this sale. I'm going to get these numbers. I'm going to make these 1,000 phone calls. Or you can just be going through life in flow. You bump into someone in Starbucks in the line where you're getting the coffee, and they turn into, you know, £1 million client or whatever it may be. It's more in flow. You're not kind of forcing everything. You're just allowing the universe. You're still taking action. You still followed up on that sale. You still spoke to them, still pitched them, still got them to pay the money, still did everything with the guy you bumped into in Starbucks. But you still took the action, because that's really important. It's not just like meditating on a mountaintop and saying, I'm going to pay all my bills, and then you just get all of the debt collectors show up. You still have to take action, but it's just more in a flow state that's really important. So yeah, I think that manifestation formula is really important, and to really know that you can have what you want and achieve it. You just have to, you know, let go of the need for it to happen and the timeline and all the forcing. So that's what I'd say about that, and I completely agree with you. Now, in terms of where people can go to find out more about me. So one of the places I send people is I have like an online assessment clients can take. Now, this assessment will help them decode the mystery behind their drinking. Why is it happening? And it will actually map out 4 things for them: map out their social life, map out their subconscious programming, their self-care routine, and, you know, what's happening in their life that's causing the addiction in the first place. And to find that, they can go to insideaddiction.co.uk/why. So that's insideaddiction.co.uk/why. And also they can listen to my podcast as well. If they just go to Inside Addiction /addiction-podcast, they'll be able to listen to the podcast if they want to get more into the addiction and go down that rabbit hole. So they're the main places to find out more about me.
Excellent. And in the footnotes, I'll have links to everything, and it's also in the transcript. Luke, you're a blessing, man. I love the work you're doing. I like the approach that you're taking. It sounds less rehab-ish, and more therapeutic and more rehabilitation. and there's a mind, body, and soul element that seems very genuine and sincere. So I think it's great. I'm a fan of you. I wish you nothing but success. God bless you, man. Thank you for being here.
Awesome. Thanks very much for having me on the show, Josh.